Hey there, this is Matt from KeepaScore. You are looking to run a pickleball tournament. You've got 16 teams or 32 people. That's obviously doubles. It could be men's doubles, women's doubles, mixed doubles, whatever it is. You're interested in running the tournament, but it's very confusing. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do in KeepaScore, which is an app you can run on your iPad or your iPhone. What we have in front of us is a spreadsheet. So you can see right here as I highlight the screen, this spreadsheet was sent to me, and they wanted to run this 16-team, 32-player round robin tournament. Now, as we can see, as I highlight all of this content right here, the spreadsheet that was sent to me, the person already knew what they wanted to do. They knew that they were going to break this down into pools or groups. So you always want to have a number that's going to be divisible by whatever you're working with. You know, obviously, if you have two players, you want to put 4 teams together, which is clearly the case right here. They've got team 1 through 4, team 5 through 8, 9 through 12, and then 13 through 16. The problem is when you start to track this stuff in a spreadsheet, things can get really complicated really quickly. For example, here we have our setup where they've got team 1 is playing team 2, but team 2 is playing team 1. Now, this looks like 2 different games if you're counting this in terms of the cells, which that's not how a round robin is going to work. With 4 teams, which we have right here, any given team cannot play itself, so any given team is only going to play all other teams, which gives you a total number of 3 games per team. So we can see right here that, let's take, for example, team 1 is not going to play itself. It's going to play 2, 3, and 4, which is exactly the case right here, 2, 3, and 4. But from the perspective of team 2, it also is going to be playing team 1. So that's why I have the colors here, for you to understand that each of these cells don't represent the total number of games, because as I highlight all of these, this is 12 total games. But if we divide 12 games by 2, we get 6 games, which is exactly what we have when we're playing a 4-team round robin, and each team plays each other team. So we can see, according to the colors, which represent an actual match or a game. Regardless of whether you're playing one game or best out of 3 or best out of 5. So we've got one game, another game happens right here, a game happens right here, and then this is a game, and then clearly this is a game, and this is a game. So this is the confusing part about a spreadsheet. Having to manage the scores and then keep track of that and find out who advances to the playoffs of each of the 2 different, the total 4 pools, and then who actually advances over to the semifinals and consolation. Keeping track of all of these scores, especially in a spreadsheet, is an absolute nightmare. So let's use the data that we have on screen and go create a match, or create a tournament in KeepaScore, where we're going to be able to run this fluidly, easily. It will take care of the scores, and we'll run through an example. All right, so here we are in the KeepaScore app. We're in an iPad, and this will work the same on an iPhone, the iPhone version of the KeepaScore app, as well as the iPad. Now, what we can see up here, up in the top area, is we can see that we have a Group A. Now, if you remember from the spreadsheet, they were broken down. Of the 16 teams, they were divided into groups of 4, and there were 4 sets of them. So when we go to the main menu and we can look in the events, we're going to see the same thing that we saw in the spreadsheet. We had a Group A, we had a Group B, a Group C, and a Group D. Then between Group A and B, we were going to have playoffs, which I've labeled Playoffs 1. And then between C and D, we were going to have Playoffs 2. And this is all dependent on the number of games that you want to actually offer. Then from the playoffs, they were going to have the semifinals, and then from that, they were going to have the finals. Now, regardless of whether you choose to play to 11, play to 15, play to 21, it really doesn't matter. In KeepaScore, what's known as an event is simply a collection of people playing a particular set of games together. And you're going to have multiple events. So the terminology that we have here in KeepaScore, we don't want to mix up or confuse this word event and say, Oh, well, this is our whole pickleball event. Well, we're calling that a tournament. You're having a pickleball tournament. Within that tournament, you have small events. Those events are the collections of players playing together, and you're going to take the results from that event and you're going to move them into the next event. So, for example, the results of the winners of Group A and Group B are going to be moved to the playoffs. Now, I'm going to be showing you how to do that. Now, this particular file, we can see right here, I simply set up 32 players. Now, in KeepaScore, you're going to have all of your players, and you can put whatever names you want. I'm going to show you how the teams are actually structured. But on each particular item, you're going to be able to specify their email address, their phone number, birth date. It will tell you their age, as we can see right there, whether female or male, if you're going to use that information. And we've got some ranking, which doesn't really apply in this particular case. You can use your arrows up here up at the top in order to move through the players. And as you're adding them with the plus right here, that will simply just add each of the players. If you use one of our templates, which this particular template, if you want this exact setup, it will be able to be downloaded from the KeepaScore website. So with all of our players set up, let's go through actually setting up one of the different types of events. I'm going to go to the events area, and I'm going to click the plus here and create a new event to show you how I actually set this up. So I created the event. And I'm on a Mac here, so it's not going to bring up the virtual keyboard, but we had Group A. And once I set up one particular type of event, I can set up many, I can duplicate that and have many others. Now, this profile that we see right here, the profile simply contains your logo and a little bit of other information that you can find in the menu. In this particular case, it comes up by default as specified as a doubles or a team event. The team size, we're going to have 2 players. Now, the playgroup icons, because KeepaScore is able to be used as a dynamic round robin tool, that's when you would use something like the default or the numbers or team. These don't apply. We're going to be playing what's called a fixed round robin, where you have an exact number of games. That's the exact count of the 6 games for each of the groups. Now, we get to choose whether we want to have a single game or best of 3. If you're going to play best of 3, then obviously all the players are going to get many games. You simply need to remember, take the total number of games that are potentially going to be played and multiply that times about 15 minutes, which is the average time that a pickleball game will run. Some can run 20 and longer. Now, what you do is you can add participants in 2 different places in KeepaScore. Here on this individual event, I can actually do that. And if I flipped over to the spreadsheet, I saw that team 1 through 4 were all in Group A. So here we would have Group A, we would put all team 1 through 4. Now, if I add all of these players, what you're going to see is I'm going to add player 1 from each of these teams, team 1, 2, 3, and 4. And remember, these would be named with player names. I'm going to have scroll down because player 2 alphabetically comes next, and it's down right here. So there I've added my 8 total players for my 4 teams. Now, I only have to do this once because we have this duplicate button right here. When I click on this duplicate button, it's going to come up and it's going to give me multiple options. If I had created teams at this point, it would also give me a third option of being able to duplicate the event and the players, or the event and the players within their teams. But in this particular case, I don't want the same players on the Group B because I know that that's going to be different players. So I'll just duplicate the event only. And what that's done is it's immediate. As we scroll up, we're going to see that it actually named it copy. I should make the software scroll up. So I would just take this off and I would call this now Group B. And then I would basically scroll down, and I'm working with different players now. It's not players 1 through 4. It's now players 5 through 8 that we can see right there. And I would do that for the other team as well. Now, I'm not going to be using these particular events because I already have them. Actually, we'll delete this particular event. And you always have to confirm things when you delete in KeepaScore. We delete that event. That event is gone. Here is my Group A, and I'll just rename this example because this is what I'm doing. I'm showing you how to actually work in KeepaScore. So we can see right here that once you've got an event, when you're looking at it, if you tap, then you will be able to load that event. So at this particular case, or at this particular time, this particular event, which represents Group A, which we would have a B, a C, and a D, obviously, there is, down at the bottom of KeepaScore, these 4 dots. You can see that you are able to slide. So we're not going to use the plus and start creating games. We're going to use the automatic game creation feature in KeepaScore. So as I swipe to the side, this is the second way that we can add and remove participants. In fact, this is our quick add feature that if you are playing games and let's say a player dropped out and you have to replace it with an alternate or another player, this is where you're able to quickly remove one player and bring another player back in. Let's say the player from Team 10 is going to swap in because player 4 was no longer able to play. Well, you're able to do that, and you will see it reflected in the player list right there. We'll put player 4 back on. The next of the 4 areas is going to be our teams area. It tells us that 4 teams are going to be created. We click create teams. It's going to create our 4 teams, and we have these indications. Down at the bottom, we've got the legend. Green means it's been assigned, a person has been assigned. Clear is they have not been assigned, and in the rare instance, you'll have an assigned multiple times, which is we've tried our best to make it really hard to accidentally assign a player multiple times. So we select and we just start to compose our teams. So here we have this plus sign right here, and we say player 1 from team 0 is going to be joined by player 2 from team, I said 0, but I mean team 1. Now there's also this feature right here, auto rename teams. If you want, turn that on. What happens is when I click here, what you're going to see is the name of the teams has now been changed to 01,01. It's essentially taking the last name, which in this particular case happens to be that 01 right there and that 01. If you have full player names, what it will do is it will read their last names, such as David and Jones. And so that's how you do that. So let's compose our other teams. This is going to be player from team 2 and player from team 2. And we just go to number 3 and we go player 3 and player 3. And 4 is just going to be player 4 and player 4. Now, it's really important to notice this little clipboard right here. In KeepaScore, when you need to take winners from one particular event and move them onto another event, such as when we go from our groups to our playoffs and from our playoffs to our semifinals, this is the key in order to make that happen. So the fourth and final area that we have down here in the bottom, we are going to swipe. This is going to be our format, and we can see that there's only one fixed format when we have a count of 8 players. Now this all comes down to the total count of players that you have. If you have 16 players, you're going to have different formats that are available. So we're going to move this from the default to a team round robin. Also notice that this is our second place. You can both set it in the event, but you can also set it here that we want to play a best of 3 as opposed to a single game. In this particular case, I'm just going to leave it at a single game, and at this point, we are ready to simply click this button, Generate. On the iPhone version, you're going to have a little icon of a wrench up here in the top, and that's where that Generate button is going to be hiding. If you want to see, based on the format that you select, what that bracket is going to look like, we are always interested in this little icon up in the top, which gives us our visualization of our bracket. So without having any players assigned or any teams assigned to this event, when I click the bracket, we can see right here, if I zoom in, which you can pinch and zoom, it's going to tell me what my spots are. So if you're playing something like a single elimination or double elimination and you want to know where to place players, this is where you get, this is game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, here, 5, and 6. And that's how you can tell, because what's going to happen is if I scroll back over here, you see this little item right here? This is basically our placements. this team of team 01, or team 1, is going to go in slot 1. If I was to switch this to slot 3, then I just moved team 1 into the third position. So looking at our bracket, that means team 1 is basically going to play their first game right here. But this is not a representation, what we have on screen, of your courts. It's just placeholders for the games. And in this particular case, it really doesn't matter whether team 1 is in the third slot, because everybody is going to be playing everybody else. So with that, we scroll over, we've got the generate button. There's also a second place where we're going to see what the results of setting this up is, and that's if we go all the way back to the front, which is the game, and it's going to show us our event plan. Our event plan is telling us we are going to have 4 teams. The number of games per round is 1, and the total number of games that it will generate is 6. So all we have to do is take that 6, multiply it times your 15 minutes. That's going to give you the total number of time. If I click on this particular item, it's the same as clicking that generate button. All of our games have now been created for us. Everyone is playing everyone else. When we go up to the bracket, we're going to be able to click that, and we are going to be able to see, and it will list, presuming we had put in actual player names, we would be able to see who is playing who, and the score will come up right there in the middle. Also note, in this particular bracket view, even if you were playing a very complex compass draw with 16 total teams, all you have to do is select on whichever item you want. So you can see right there, I clicked on match 5, I believe that was. So if I zoom in again, let's say I wanted to load match 3, I can click that right here. I can also click it over in the side. So you can see I can select match 1, and it will load into the center area that particular match. Also note that you are able, there's many different options that you have with KeepaScore. You can filter based on using this little item right here. You can also go to a particular player, and when you select on that player's name, it will list all of the games that they either have played or potentially will play. The question mark means that they are waiting to play that game. So we can see that for this particular player, which is player 1 off of team 3, of course this would be a player name, we would be able to see which games they are queued up to play. So what do you do when you need to advance your players? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter in a few scores here, but I'm going to finish out this full group, and then I will show you how you can move players or look at who is the winners of a particular event, and then move them to another event. Note that we've got this little exclamation point right here in the UI. If you tap on this, it will tell you what the problem is. In this particular case, we've got scores missing. Entering scores is super easy. Let's say that they won by 11-7, and all we do is we come down and we click our all-important lock. The lock is the key to moving everybody forward. So when we click that, it locks that particular game. And then it would have to be unlocked by an approved player. You can see that our players have shifted from a light gray, meaning they are light blue, they don't have any games, to the point where they do have games. So when we click on this, we can see that this particular player won in their particular game, and they've got 2 other games to play, which makes sense in our round robin. If we click on one of our other players, well, that also is a player that won. Let's look at player 2. There is your loss as opposed to your win. So I'm going to finish out these scores, and then we're going to find the winners and move them to the next event within this tournament. All right, we are ready. We've finished one of the groups. Now, obviously, depending on how many courts you have, you are going to be running multiple groups at the same time. And unfortunately, I'm doing this on the example. I should have done this on the, not on the example, but basically on my actual events. And that is because of this reason right here. You have to pay attention to the fact that provided an event happens on the exact same day, we can see that this event happens, this Group A, B, and C, as well as the playoffs and the semifinals, all happen on 8/18/2003. Now, the way that KeepaScore works is if it sees however many events it sees, if they happen on the same day, you are going to have access to the event switcher. And that's all important as you're going to run your tournament. Because obviously, if you've got your round robin uh, of 4 playing on one court and you've got another on another court, you're going to be switching between each of these events, between A, B, C, and D, a lot as you enter in scores, because everybody's going to be bringing their scores to you at different times. So I'm going to switch to this group A of my actual event, and there it is right there. That calendar icon, if it sees any more than one event, it's going to provide you with this event switcher. So if I need to enter scores from somebody comes in and they've finished in Group B, I'm going to click Group B, and now I can start to click on these games and add in those scores. If I'm going to see Group C, then I'm going to switch to that group. So what I'm going to do is just for the sake of the fact that it makes it easier, I'm going to go to my example here, and I am going to change this to the 18th as well, August 18th. And that way it will show up in my event switcher. So now I'm going to be able to, in that little icon, I'm going to be able to see, there it is, my group example. If I needed to switch over to Group B and go back to my example, I can. So we finished this group out. We want to know who has won. I mean, we've got all these points. We can see what they've got. KeepaScore gives you all of the stats right there with the stats icon. Also notice, if you want to know what the grouping of players are, this little icon right here is going to break down our teams, where we can see Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4. So if it's a little bit confusing for you, it really becomes more confusing when you're running very large events where you've got more than 32 individual players. You need that breakdown. But here we have our stats. When we click our stats, we've got individual player stats, and we've also got team stats. So clicking on the team stats is going to tell us everything we need to know about the results of that game. And it doesn't matter whether you're playing a Major League Pickleball format or just a standard pickleball format that we have right here. All of these columns that we see up at the top, we are able to sort based on those. We've got points percentage won, average points, the net games, game points, games lost, games won, games played. So whatever the stat is that you like to use, we can see quite clearly in terms of total game points, it was Team 1 and Team 3 that were the winners of this particular event. Or if you want to call it a bracket, whatever you want to call it, we call it an event. So in order to move Team 1 and Team 3 to the playoffs, we are going to do this. We are going to scroll to that teams area. And remember, it was Team 1, which we had moved them in their seating. So Team 1 and Team 3. These are the two teams that we needed to be able to move to the other event. This is where we get into our clipboard. So with Team 1 selected, we will click the little clipboard, and the clipboard disappears. That means that this team has been added to our virtual clipboard, which allows us to transfer it to another event. We'll select Team 3. We will click the clipboard. It has been added as well. Now, the virtual clipboard, no matter what event you are on, is accessible using the little wrench icon from the Teams area. We can see right there that we have the team clipboard. This can be brought up at any time. And we can see that it's giving us an indication. We have this little warning icon. That's because this team already exists in this event, and we cannot add this team to this event. We can also see that we have the icon right here where we can delete this. We also have an option down at the bottom where we can just clear the whole clipboard. So the key to using KeepaScore with multiple events is being able to use the event switcher, switching to the event that you want using the virtual clipboard, and simply transferring your teams. So the playoffs is an event that did not have any teams. All we have to do is click this, click the team clipboard. We can see that the warning sign has now turned into the plus sign. And as soon as we click the plus and we close this out, you will see that we have added the two winning teams to this particular playoff. We would do the same thing for Group B and then just follow the same format. Regardless of what you're going to do, whether you're going to have a single elimination or a double elimination playoff, whether you're going to play another round robin and give players a total number of games, once you have your teams and players added, you're simply just going to move over to the formats. The formats in this particular case, because I only have 4 players total or 2 teams, I do not have any formats listed, but if I had finished out my Group B and added them, you better believe that I'm going to have another round robin that I could run. If you're running consolation, what have you, if you're running a single elimination, then you'll be able to do that with more players. It just really depends on how you want to use KeepaScore in order to manage your round robin pickleball event. And this is how you're able to use KeepaScore in order to manage and extend an event, or excuse me, a tournament within multiple events, where you can move from one particular event, say Group A, take your winners, move them to your playoffs. Group B, move them to your playoffs, play your playoffs. Take C and D, move them to your playoffs, play your playoffs. Take your winners from those, move them to your finals, and move them to your semifinals. Here's something that's important. If KeepaScore does not have a particular format that you are looking for, it's very important to recognize that KeepaScore allows you to track within any given single event as many games as you want and subdivide those games using a simple icon format. It's how KeepaScore was designed. If we go to events, and let's say, for example, in our semifinals, we're ultimately going to only end up with, let's say, 4 total players. In KeepaScore, there is no fixed format event for 4 total players. Well, you probably need more than 4, because obviously with 4 players, you just have a winner and a loser, which would probably be in the finals, would be your gold and your silver. So this default play group allows you to subdivide games, and all it comes down to is use the same icon for however many games you want to group together. So I'm going to load this event, and I am also going to add a number of players here, just random players, so that I can show you how this actually works. You can, in KeepaScore, also reset any type of situation that you want to change. You can. When we have a certain number of teams that have been created, we are going to be able to reset them with this option right here. This will delete all the teams. If we have a format, we are going to have an option where we are able to reset the games. We can also, in the menu, we will find this option of deleting all of an event's games. Now, obviously, if you have scores that you care about, don't do that. You're not going to delete those games because you want to keep the scores. But if you need to, because you feel like you've made a mistake, you do have reset options. So going back to our default settings, where the format that we have right here, this default format using play groups is simply just a matter of using your icons. There you can see that even though in that third area where I have teams, it doesn't even matter. Even though I've created teams, I don't need them in order to track games amongst players. In fact, I'm going to click the reset option, and I'm going to reset the teams and get rid of them. Just to prove the point that with KeepaScore, if you remember that these icons simply represent groupings, I can say I'm going to put all of these groups of players into the OWL group. That's going to be player from, looks like I did all player 1, all through 1 through 10. So I'll just say, put team 2, we'll play all just team 1 through 3 or whatever here. And we'll put 4. And KeepaScore will not allow you to have the same player on 2 times, which we can see I've done right here. Player 1 from team 2, player 1 from team 2. It's telling me with this check players that something is wrong. So let's switch that. Let's put player 5 here and put player 2 there. Wrong player. There we go. So with these players, we can put in a score. And again, and we lock this event, we can click the plus. Again, all we have to do is keep whichever groups of players play together in the same grouping of an icon. So I'm going to do another owl here really quickly. We'll just do some random players, which this won't totally make sense. It works a lot easier with player names. I keep putting the same player there twice. 9 is not in there. And we'll give this one a score of 11 and 7, and we'll lock it. We'll create a new game with the plus, and we are going to use a new icon. Let's say I'll use the unicorn now. This is going to be a different subdivision of players, and we're always able to get access to the data based on a subdivision, provided all of those players, or that group of players, used the same icon. So you can see right here in the list of games, this list can become very large, 64, 100, more than 200 games in one particular event. But as long as you remember using that icon for subdivision, you can always click on the icon. If I click on the unicorn, it will filter down to just those games played by that particular play group. I click here, and I'm going to be able to remove that filter and come back and click on and just see the owl subgroup. Likewise, when I am interested in the results of a subgroup, I am able to go to the stats area, and the stats area allows me to subdivide looking at players based on a play group. This item up in the top of this dialog allows me to say, I want to see all of the games that were played on the owl icon, and it will show me a stats button right here. These stats will only be represented by those games played by those players in that specific play group. That is the power of KeepaScore. It allows you to play and collect as many games with as many scores as you want. And provided you use that icon, which is just the same thing as using a tag, you will be able to get the results out because you can filter or limit the subset of data down to just those items where that icon or tag was applied to that particular game. So even if you don't have the format or don't see the format that you want to play in KeepaScore, KeepaScore will still allow you to subdivide any number of games that you want to manage. So even if you needed to use a spreadsheet, you can use a spreadsheet in order to structure what you want to track and manage, and you can use KeepaScore in order to collect and aggregate the data and get the results that you need. I hope this has been helpful in terms of you running your own pickleball tournaments. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave a comment on this video so that everybody else can learn. I will reply to it on this video, and I'd like to wish you much luck with your tournament. This is Matt from KeepaScore, and until the next video, see you later.